What is up, guys? Rick Cacus here, and today we are going to be taking a look at the new Iron Banner auto rifle for Destiny 2, the Forward Path, and asking the question, is it any good? Well, to find out, we're going to go over this weapon's stats and perks, and then we're going to talk about how it performs firstly in PvP and also in PvE. Now, this weapon was pretty hyped up when it first came out, but I think that could just be a result of people not thoroughly testing and just having a few good games. And also, quite frankly, a video that says OMG best weapon ever is gonna do better than a video that says, hey, it's pretty average. I mean, the Raid auto rifle was pretty hyped up for PvP, and now it's nowhere because it is pretty average. But is the Forward Path a different story? Well, let's take a look at its stats. We've got actually a fairly decent range, we've got fairly decent stability for this archetype, and the archetype is the 600 rounds per minute archetype. So this is going to be firing faster and doing less damage than the most popular archetype, the 450 rounds per minute archetype, which is the origin story, the Uriel's gift, the number, etc. It also has a superbly high handling, like incredibly high handling, and also a very, very high reload speed. So naturally, the stats of the Forward Path are actually quite good. Moving on to the perks. Firstly, we have the intrinsic perk Adaptive Frame, a well-rounded grip, reliable, and sturdy. We have a choice of 3 different optics. I'm using mini red dot sight. We then have extended magazine, and we have armor piercing rounds. I'm using armor piercing rounds to extend the range as much as possible. And then we have the perk Tap the Trigger. Now, this grants a short period of increased stability and accuracy on initial trigger pull. So when you first engage a target, if you're running up to an objective and you see a guy, you zoom down sights and you start shooting, those first opening shots are going to be more stable and more accurate. So you're going to have a much higher chance to be landing your initial shot, whereas someone who doesn't have this perk may have a harder time recoiling off target, for example. Tap the Trigger is undoubtedly an excellent perk. It's the best perk on the Prosecutor, the Trials auto rifle, which is still a very competitive, very good auto rifle. So this is definitely something you shouldn't overlook. Now, moving on, is this actually an effective combination of stats and perks? How does the Forward Path perform in PvP? Well, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I fully expected to not like this weapon. I've tried several 600 rounds per minute auto rifles, and I just haven't liked them. They pale in comparison, in my opinion, to the 450 rounds per minute auto rifles. So it's kind of up against the wall with the Forward Path. Why would you use the Forward Path when you could use the Origin Story? Another auto rifle, but in a more desirable damage archetype and has really good perks. Well, what ended up happening surprised me because I liked the Forward Path. I really did. This is a very, very good 600 rounds per minute auto rifle. If you enjoy auto rifles of this archetype, I think you're really going to enjoy the Forward Path. And why did I enjoy it? I don't know. Seriously, there isn't something I can point to as the absolute factor of why that gun is so good, right? It's a combination of several different things, but the end result is just an auto rifle that's very easy to use. You just end up winning gunfights that you didn't necessarily think you would. And again, something like the Uriel's gift, you can point to, well, it has high caliber rounds, I'm causing more flinch. This, I don't know. It just has a great combination of stats, and it could be a result of the very high handling. There is some evidence to point that handling affects the flinch you take. So the more handling you have, the less flinch you're going to take. Now, take that with a huge grain of salt. I don't think this has been really thoroughly tested. I want to test this myself at one point, but this is just kind of information out in the ether. And if that is true, the massive handling stat of the forward path is going to help that. But what we do know for a fact is that handling does affect things like aim down sights time and sprint out time, where if you're sprinting or if you jump, it affects the recovery time, the time it takes to aim down sights and start shooting. So something like the forward path can be used a lot more aggressively because of its extremely high handling stat. You can run, sprint towards the enemy, you see them, they see you, you're going to be able to aim down sights and start shooting quicker than they will, and you get the bonus from tap the trigger, so you're going to be more accurate than they are as well. This is kind of all adding up to a gun that is, again, favoring that aggressive playstyle and is overall just got a great combination of different things to help it perform better in the Crucible. The problem, however, is that although this is one of, if not probably the best 600 rounds per minute auto I have used in PvP, it's also still just a 600 rounds per minute auto rifle. There are better options out there. The Uriel's Gift is so versatile, it is so good, and I can't say that the forward path is better than that. Another example, and a better example frankly, is the Antiope D submachine gun. The existence of that gun makes it really hard to justify using the forward path. The Antiope D also shoots at 600 rounds per minute, but instead of hitting for a maximum headshot damage of 17 like the forward path, it hits for 20 headshot damage and a range that honestly competes with this weapon. Oh, and by the way, it has kill clip, and when you get kill clip activated, it does 26 damage for a headshot. So the Antiope D is just out damaging the crap out of this weapon. It's also a kinetic weapon too, so if you really want to play aggressively and use a weapon that kills people incredibly quickly, the Antiope D just completely outperforms the forward path in that department. But moving on, how does the forward path perform in PvE, the other half of the game? Well, to be honest, it doesn't bring anything to the table. There is some good perks on this weapon, there's some great stats on this weapon, but they're more PvP oriented. Tap the trigger is great in PvP. In PvE, you don't really need that initial accuracy when you're fighting a Cabal, right? What you want is damage. So stuff like the origin story with Rampage, anything with Rampage, frankly, is fantastic. Kill clip is fantastic. Even high impact reserves is going to out damage the forward path. So the raid auto rifle is going to end up doing more damage output than the forward path because it does have high impact reserves. The forward path is still a decent weapon. Like for whatever reason you don't have a huge number of auto rifles and this is your best auto rifle, you're actually going to enjoy this in PvE because auto rifles are in such a great spot right now and their damage output is just phenomenal. But again, this doesn't bring anything special to the table when we're talking about PvE functionality. With that being said, if you don't have the origin story and you don't have the raid auto rifle, this is probably in 3rd or 4th place for a kinetic auto rifle. So if you really want that kinetic slot taken up by an auto rifle, this is extremely easy to use. It's got a really high reload speed, which does matter in PvE. You want to be able to reload and keep damaging, and that's going to, overall increase your damage output against bosses and so on. And so this is just a fine weapon to use. It's fine in PvE. Where its talents really do lie is again in PvP, however. And so that is really the overall story of the forward path. It's a good gun. Like, it honestly is a good gun. It's got great stats, good perks, but there are better alternatives. It exists in an archetype that is hard to justify using over the 450 archetype in all honesty. And again, stuff like the Antiope D exists in the same kinetic slot and just out damages and outperforms the forward path in so many different scenarios. Now that assessment is going to be a little bit different for those of you who really go out of your way and enjoy the 600 rounds per minute archetype, of course, but also watch this weapon's positioning. It sits right now at just almost good, almost quite competitive, right? So if Bungie does come in and have a big sandbox update and shuffles around some stuff, nerfs the 450 archetype, for example, this is suddenly going to propel into competitiveness. This is sitting right, just waiting to do that. So once there is a sandbox update, I would definitely recommend checking this weapon back out. It could suddenly shoot to the top. And so guys, that is it for the video. I hope you enjoyed and found this informative. Now if you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. And if you actually want to be notified of new uploads, be sure to press the bell beside subscribe. If you guys want to support myself and the channel, check out the official merch linked in the description down below. Now, if you guys want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.